Hey everybody, John Granato from the bench. Mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and that's AJ Hoffman. He's on the Blitz. That's afternoons on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you have not yet subscribed, please do. Get all our content right here on this YouTube channel. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson, but let's stay away from the accusations and details. They're salacious. They're not good. AJ, let's just talk about this whole thing from a football standpoint, okay? Which isn't the important thing, but from a football standpoint, man, what does this say about the Texans that people think it's a conspiracy, that Jack Easterby started this whole thing, that Cal McNair lives near Tony Busby, so they all orchestrated this whole thing to make Deshaun look bad? I actually heard from football people, and Lance did too, from football people in the NFL that they would not put it past him and they would not be surprised if Easterby was behind this. What does this say about where the Texans are in the NFL right now?
It doesn't say anything new, but this is a disastrously, poor organization that's around the league, around football in general, around everybody who has any interest in football realizes now this is a total S show down here. I can't think of another NFL team that would have this happen and they would go, you think the team leaked that out? Like, oh yeah, your best player. That's what we really want for our team, is our best player to be known as a sexual assault guy. That's great.
No, and just the entire aura of the organization, the distrust, the conniving, the conspiracy, all of those things behind the scenes, that is how this organization is viewed. When Bob McNair built an organization that was just totally the first word that came to mind whenever anyone ever talked about Bob McNair was class. And now it's to a point where you think that they're actually out there trying to put a sexual assault deviance on their star player. This is where we're at with an organization. It's unbelievable where this team is in the landscape of not only the NFL, but of all of sports. All of sports. Now, what does this do for his, first of all, his trade value? What does this do for Deshaun's trade value? Can you see any team taking him on? What is the press conference going to look at like when the Bears trade for him and give up 3 first-rounders or whoever? What is that press conference? What would that look like?
I have a hard time imagining that what you said, 3 first-rounders, I think that's off the table now. Even with the accusation, his trade value's plummeted. Is there still going to be interest out there? Sure. It won't be at the level of, because no one's willing to put that much risk into it now, because now this is a risk situation. There's a possibility this turns into, Bill Cosby or Harvey Weinstein, where it just they keep rolling out. And I mean, I'm not saying that he did or didn't, but I'm saying if it keeps coming out, then man, now this is what we've got on our hands. We just gave up 3 first-round picks for this guy who might be suspended. I think that whole mega package is off the table now for any of these teams that were considering it. We heard earlier, well, the Dolphins or the Jets, they're willing to go all in for Deshaun. I don't think you can do that now. If you're the Jets or Dolphins, I don't think you can say, we're throwing everything at this deal and we want him, we need him, because if this ends up being true, now you've burned 3 years worth of draft capital on a guy that's not going to be playing for you.
Well, I don't even know that it has to be true. It's on his resume now.
Right.
And even without it, if the NFL, even if all the claims, he wins all the civil suits, the NFL could still go, we believe them and we don't believe you, Deshaun. Guess what? You're suspended because you brought shame upon the brand. And we're going to suspend you. Now, a team doesn't want a guy that's going to be suspended. But if I'm another team and I get him for these 5 years that he's got, I don't care about a 4-game suspension because I've got him for all the other games. That's fine. But it's just the fact that I've got a guy who has gone through this, that has this on his resume, that is going to be the face of my franchise. You're absolutely right. And so now if I'm the Texans, I say, well, you're our only asset. We can't trade you. We're going to get maybe a first rounder. Maybe we'll get other players. Maybe we'll get whatever for a franchise quarterback. We can't trade you now.
Yeah. Has anyone, a year ago when we talked about Deshaun Watson's character, it was really unquestioned, right? it's wild to think where his stock was 1 year ago to where it is now. And I thought, man, even with I want to be traded, and the way he's handled this has been so poor in my mind that it had already kind of taken a bump. Boy, this makes it where I almost feel foolish for thinking, oh, well, this guy, his character's above reproach, because clearly it's not.
Well, what's going to happen now, AJ? If I'm a betting man, he's a Houston Texan going forward. Ben Roethlisberger was able to get through it. Kobe Bryant was able to get through it. He stayed with his team. His team stayed behind him. I think if the Texans stay quiet here, they don't say a word, no comment whatsoever, let this play out. Deshaun, behind the scenes, guess what? We can't trade you. Nobody wants you now.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come out and say, we've worked it out with ownership, with Easterby, with Caserio. I want to be a Houston Texan now. I'm going to stay here. I want this franchise to win. I'm clearly, I signed my contract. I'm retracting my wish to be traded. I want to be a Houston Texan. That's how this is going to play out, if he's going to play anywhere in the NFL.
Yeah, and I still don't know if he's going to play. But I've thought for a while now the likely ending of this thing was him missing some time and then coming out and saying, you know what? I realize I love football too much to be away from the game. I just want to play. I want things to be better here, but I just want to play. I do think something like that is the way that this thing ends.
How is so he comes back and he's a Houston Texan. What do you think? How is he received by the fan base?
I think there's a point where you are such a player, you are such a positive for your team that fans like these loons will say it didn't happen. This is just there's not a Laker fan who believes Kobe Bryant did anything wrong. They just it wasn't a possibility because they were in the middle of winning rings. They weren't going to let that ruin it.
Do you think Jack Easterby can possibly, Cal McNair, they're both Christian, do you think that Easterby, after all the stuff that he said about Robert Kraft, that he can be a part of an organization that Deshaun Watson is in?
I think that Easterby's stock is now so low that if he wants to continue being in football, he wants to continue to have any sort of power anywhere, this is the only place left that he can have it. There's no other team who's going to say, oh, well, we want you here, Jack. We think you'd be great for our culture. After they've seen what's happened here, I don't think he's got any other options unless he just says, I want out of football altogether. But if you want to work in football, you're going to work around guys these young millionaires who aren't used to being told no. Whatever team you're working with, something like this is eventually going to pop up. It won't always pop up with the star quarterback, but it's going to pop up eventually.
This just can't get any uglier, AJ. It can't get any worse for the organ. I thought that they were at their lowest point. Boy, was I wrong. The hits just keep on coming for the Houston Texans. Congratulations.